What's up, my loves? My name is Paige, this is Pages with Paige, and today we're going to be doing my May wrap-up. So in the month of May, I participated in 3 readathons: Medievalathon, Believathon, and Finishathon. And I'll leave links to all the information in the description box below. And yeah, I had an absolute blast. I read 20 things in the month of May, and I'm just, whoa! I read a total of 6,582 pages and had 9 5 stars, 8 4 stars, 2 3 stars, and 1 1 star. As I go through the books, I'll let you know what they work for each readathon, because some are double ups. The first book that I finished in May was Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers. This managed to get me the shield for Medievalathon by I went in with high expectations, as well as actually completing off a whole series for Finishathon. So this is following a few different perspectives as we navigate space. Humans have left Earth and now live on the Exodus fleet, and it's just following these characters as they learn humanity in an alien environment. So how different species interact and how you need to learn and be considerate, but there are also higher political structures at play, and it was just brilliant. I loved so many quotes from this. I thought it was just beautiful and heartwarming. There is LGBT rep, which I really appreciated, and yeah, I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful story and lived up to my expectations, and I gave this 5 stars. The next book I read on my Kindle, and that was Desperate Measures by Katie Robert, and I gave this a 4.5 to 5 star, but I have only marked it as a 4 star on Goodreads. This fulfilled the prompt to gain this clothing for Medievalathon of being under 300 pages, and I fell in love with this, and I'm very excited to continue on with the series this month. So this is following Jasmine and Jafar in a erotic relationship, and essentially Jafar overthrows the Sultan and takes Jasmine as his prize, and there's a lot of consent, non-consent in it, and oh, it just words do not articulate how I felt about this book. I thought that there was the perfect balance between the steamy scenes and the actual relationship. I didn't realize that it was going to be somewhat relationship-y focused, and the ending just definitely pick this up if you're into that sort of thing. There is a lot of kink in it, so be warned going in, this is an adult read meant for adults, and yeah. The next book I read was also on my Kindle, as it was a NetGalley arc, and that was Other Life by Jason Siegel and Kirsten Miller. This was for Finishathon, and so I have now finished the trilogy of that as well, and I gave this a 3 stars. I think I was disappointed with the ending because the villain became a caricature of themselves, and the video game elements weren't as prevalent, and there was so much potential, and the books 1 and 2 I had given 4 stars and really enjoyed and thought they were doing a really good job, and then it just plateaued. So yeah, 3 star, a little bit disappointed. I could see there was an ending that could have happened that they chose not to go with, and I think it might have actually worked better having a different structure. The next book I read was a gift from April from Aprilius Maximus, and that was The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. I gave this a 5 stars. I absolutely adored it. It's a quick, beautiful LGBT middle grade graphic novel that just is wholesome in every element of it. The graphics are absolutely stunning, and the messages and stories is just so pure. This is following Greta and Minette, and just as they explore what they want to do in their lives and find out who they are, and yes, and I want the little tea dragon so badly. The next book I read fulfilled the prompt of pristine cover to get this outfit for Medievalathon, and it also was the second in a companion series, and that is The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. This is following Imogen and Amara that look very similar, and they need to swap places when a script is starting to be leaked, and Jessica Stone, the actress, wants to hunt down who's leaking it and expose them, so she asks Imogen to fill in her place, and there's so much more to it, and it's just absolutely wonderful. I really enjoyed the dynamics between Imogen and Jess, and I think that the relationships that developed in this were really, really, really sweet. And there was an LGBT romance, there was also enemies to lovers, and just everything worked so wonderfully, and I can't wait to pick up Bookish and the Beast, I think is the third one, that's coming out very, very soon. So the next lot of books were for Believathon. There were a few double ups for Medievalathon, and yeah, the first one that I read for Believathon was Poacher's Pocket Inn, read the first book in a series, and I chose How to Train Your Dragon by Cressida Cowell. This also got me this item of clothing, which needed to have a dragon on the cover, and Toothless is on the cover, and I know that he is a dragon. This is Gavin's namesake, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 stars. I knew it was going to be different from the movie, but I was not prepared for how different it was. This is following Hiccup and Toothless as they train one another to do what they want. I thought it was a really interesting story, and I think that it would have been a 3-star, but with David Tennant's narration, I got so into the story that I couldn't help but fall in love with the characters a bit more. And yeah, it would be nice to have a female actually present in the story, but that aside, I'm really happy that I picked this up, and we'll continue on with the series eventually. I then got on a little bit of a roll of 5-star reads, and the next book I picked up was The Land of Yesterday by K.A. Reynolds. This was not Finishathon or Medievalathon. It just fulfilled the prompt of Baba Yaga's house and then swapped it to The Wonderfuls, as this is following mental illness and disability rep in that form. This is following Cecilia as she navigates the land of yesterday after her little brother has perished and her mum decides to follow him into the land of yesterday. It's a really heartwarming, beautiful read about grief and family relationships, and also it's a big homage to suicide. So trigger warnings are abundant, check them out before going in, but I think it's really important to have this and to be able to talk to kids about their emotions and their feelings, and I think this conceptualizes it in a really unique way that kids will engage with. The next book I read was another 5-star, and that was The House of Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. I absolutely adored following Marinka as she figures out who she is, what she wants from life, and how to go about it. I cried a lot, thanks Gav, and yeah, it was just a beautiful story that I feel like anyone could gain something from. It's just really wonderful seeing Marinka find herself and a community that she was previously missing. And this fulfilled the prompt of Mermaid Lagoon, a book featuring a female relationship, so between Baba Yaga and Marinka. The next book I read was continuing on the Sophie Anderson hype train, and that was The Girl Who Speaks Bear, and this is fulfilling the prompt of Black Ice Bridge, read a book that features an adventure. So Yankai is a tall, strong child, and she was found abandoned in a bear cave when she was young, and it's her finding her place and her family and what she wants to do. There's a lot of magical intrigue, and she definitely goes on an adventure as she tries to figure out what's going on and how to remove the issues that have become of her. And so I technically finished Believathon with my next book, and that was to reach the Bookkeeper's Stronghold and to read the next in a series. So I read Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales by Anna James. This is the second in the Pages and Co series, and also worked for Finishathon, being part of a series. I love this. I think Tilly's stubbornness definitely reared its head a lot more in this narrative than the first one, and she made some really silly choices when her life was endangered not that long ago. But I can understand a child that wants to push the boundaries will continue to push the boundaries even once they've been tested, and she just wanted to find her voice and her strength and get to the bottom of the plot that had started in the first book and solve the mystery. So yeah, I can understand why she made her actions. It was just a little bit frustrating, and I was sitting and FaceTiming just going, stop, yeah. But you know, characters need to do what they need to do, and I could appreciate it and love it regardless of being frustrated. Then we hit a bit of a snack, and this was to continue back on the paths and fill in the rest of the gaps. The Yellow Brick Road, read a book you meant to read years ago. Mary Poppins Comes Back by P.L. Travers. I gave this 1 star. I absolutely hated it. This was working towards Finishathon as being the second in a series. It's a collection of short stories that Mary Poppins goes on with the Banks children, but needs to be read in chronological order. And I just thought she was a cow. They had to introduce a even nastier, over-exaggerated character to make Mary Poppins seem even remotely nice, and even then it doesn't work because she's just horrible. She manipulates the kids into feeling that the experiences they had weren't real and that they could only depend on the 2 children between themselves, because Mary Poppins would just treat them like dirt. She's so vain that when she gets distracted by her own reflection, she'll then blame it on the children for making her late and keeping her occupied. And this is a whole lot of nope. I did intend on reading the rest of the series as my Believeathon TBR, but I could not bring myself to do it because I detested this wholeheartedly. I started it and was reading and talking to Cara and April about the issues, and they're like, I was saying, you know, it's okay, it's a 3 star, and they're like, no dude, that sounds like a 2 star. And by the end of it, I was just, nah, done. So 1 star, and yeah. So because I was going to read the next Mary Poppins, I needed to jiggle around my TBR quite a bit. So I ended up purchasing the audio and ebook copy of Brightstorm by Vashti Hardy, and we were back on a 5-star kick. This was to fulfill the prompt of 100 Acre Wood, read a yellow cover book. So Gav said that it doesn't need to have all yellow, just some yellow, and this has a nice amount of yellow on the cover. I absolutely adore this. This was wonderful picks for Believeathon. Another 5-star read, and it's just a steampunk fantasy adventure, and it's following Audie and Maud as they navigate to the South Polaris because their father has gone missing and believed dead, and so they don't think that the situation that's involved is actually true, so they set out to make the corrections. It also has disability rep, as Audie is missing an arm, and so Maud is like the genius creator and has constructed a new one for him. It's a prevalent part of the story, but not the sole focus, and I really enjoyed seeing that sort of representation in a fantasy middle grade. So the next thing I read was for Orion Found, read a sci-fi book, and so I decided to pick up the middle grade monthly pick of May, and that was Orion Lust by Alliston Chisholm. So this is following Beth and her 6 other companions as they are lost in space. So they wake up to find that they are in charge of a ship and need to continue to save the people on board the ship to be able to get home. It's like they're in a catatonic state, and so they can't wake up the adults, and so Beth, the 13-year-old, and her 6 friends need to band together to work together to be able to get home. There's also aliens, damaged ships, and pirates, and it was just a wild ride. I definitely would be erring on a 4.5 star rating. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun and adventurous, but it just lacked that extra little bit to bump it into a 5-star read. The next book was originally going to be my Wonderfuls prompt, which was to feature disability, but I swapped that with The Land of Yesterday. So this is Baba Yaga's House, read a book featuring family relationships, and that is Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan. This is following Willow after her parents have died, and she is comprehending their grief. She is a genius child that is obsessed with plants and diagnosing medical conditions. I gave this a 3-star because I feel like it was tokenistic, and the story itself was one that had really important messages in it, but the ending completely disregarded everything that had happened. Willow is taken in by this Vietnamese family who's very poor. They live out the back of a nail salon, and it's like she's the beacon child that she's around people and then their lives miraculously get better. And I just didn't feel like it explored the concepts that it set out to address well enough to be anything more than a 3-star read. I still enjoyed it, but I don't think I would recommend this to many kids unless they were really into genius children with that. So it was nice seeing the different diversity rep, but again, not enough to push it through. The next book I read also fulfilled prompt for Readathon, and that was to do a buddy read so I could get the dog companion. And I buddy read Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging by Louise Readathon with April. And oh my goodness, this was a barrel of laughs. I could only give it a 4-star because it is so problematic. But in terms of nostalgia, entertainment-wise, it was top-notch. It's hard to address all the problematic elements in it. There's a lot of slut-shaming, and there are suicide jokes, and just a whole lot of not good things. But as a person that grew up in this era, I related to it painfully so. This was fulfilling the prompt of the Deep Woods reader book published pre-2000, and this was published in 1999. So yeah, definitely if you have nostalgia sake and want to pick it up, go ahead. But if you haven't read it before, I might suggest maybe not, because it is definitely a product of its time and could stay there. The final book that I read for Believeathon also worked as Finishathon, as it was the next in a series, and it was to fulfill the prompt of the Brolly Rail read a book featuring transportation, and that was Wonder Smith by Jessica Townsend. So this is following Morgan Crow as she continues on her journeys in Nevermore. I really enjoyed this. The first 50 pages took their time to get me raptured into the story, but once we were following in an academy sort of setting, I was hooked. I loved seeing the magic develop and finding the different elements within the world, and I loved the train that is in this, the home train. I want to live there. It is glorious. I felt that Morgan was handling the situation really well, considering she's young and she just really wants to fit in, and yeah, I thought this was a really brilliant book. So that was it for Believeathon. That was 11 things there. The next book I read was for Darshell's from Books and Planners Facebook group, and also it fulfilled the prompt of Medievalathon to get a horse companion by reading a tall hardcover, and that was The Librarian of Auschwitz by Antonio Iturbt, translated by Lilith Waits. And this is following Dita, as she is the librarian in Auschwitz and the consequences that came of this. It is based off real experiences without being a non-fictional recount. It was a hard book to read, and there were many times where I needed to step away to be able to process the things that had happened. I'm not knowledgeable in any way, shape or form about what happened in the camps. I have read maybe 2 books on it, and every time my heart just breaks over again that humans could do this to their fellow peers. Definitely a challenging book to read. I gave it 4 stars because I think it is important, and it was a beautiful narrative in such a harrowing situation. Yeah, so exercise caution picking that up, but definitely would recommend if you think that you can handle it. The next book I read was to fulfill the prompt of read something that had a pointy thing on the cover, to be able to get this sword for Medievalathon, and was also my In Real Life book club pick. Unfortunately, we've had to postpone the meeting because no one can actually meet up, and only 2 of us have read it, but that's all good. And that was The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. On the front, there is a statue holding a sword, so that is a pointy thing, and this is following Brisai as she is captured by the Greeks and is living out her experiences of the Trojan War, being a Trojan in the Greeks' side as a slave, as a prize for Achilles. I thought it was really interesting hearing the female perspective of the war, and I thought that Pat Barker took a really interesting take following through with not just her experiences but the rest of the girls, and talking and just getting to see what it was like to be a female captive. I think I gave this 4 stars, and the only thing that I wish was done differently was not including a male perspective, because I felt that that detracted from the overall story. But I still enjoyed reading the sections. I just thought I would rather be back with Brissa. The next book I read was for Finishathon, and that was to read the next in a series, and that was Silver and Stone by Felicity Banks. The first is Heart of Brass, and this is following Emmeline, Matilda and Patrick as they navigate the Australian outback during the gold rush. They are outlaws and trying to break Patrick's mother out from the female factory. I thought this was really informative. I enjoyed the representation that was in it, and I did chuckle aloud at one particular scene where people were giving consent and actually vocalizing their wants. So that was absolutely beautiful. I think it's hard, and I read the author's notes that she chose to call Aboriginal people as natives in this book as a representation of the time, and I understand and respect that choice. As a white Australian, it was hard to read knowing the connotations that go along with that word, but I really appreciate that it was done in a sensitive way. And I gave this 5 stars. The last book that I read was the ultimate book. It finished a series for Finishathon, and it also got me this item of clothing, which was to read a book that had yellowed over time, and that was The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien, and oh my lord, I am in love with Sam. I felt that because I was listening to the audiobook and sometimes reading along, sometimes not, I feel that I really need to give this series a whole reread and just break it down bit by bit. I was always rushing to finish these books, and I feel that I didn't give them the time that they deserve to be able to really make the impression that I know they can. So I gave this 4 stars. I really did enjoy it, but I felt that the way that I read it did not give it justice. And this was just following Frodo and the whole gang as they continued on their quests to do what they need to do. And yeah, this had definitely yellowed over time, and yeah, so these were the 17 physical copies and 3 ebooks that I read in the month of May. And I'm extremely proud of what I managed to get read. I don't think I can keep the momentum up in June. I'm already really struggling, starting off my TBR with a over 800 page book, but I'm enjoying it, so that's the main thing. But yes, expect a smaller stack, hopefully for my arm's sake, for next month. And don't forget to check the description box below for the resources to the Black Lives Matter movement, funds, donation pages, petitions, all of that need to keep being spread to help the momentum going, because this topic can't just be swept under the rug. It needs to be continually vocalized and brought to the limelight. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this mess. Let me know in the comments below what was your favourite read of May, and I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!